Pat Dugan, running for District Attorney of Philadelphia. Why'd you decide to run for this office in the first place?
For 17 years, I was a judge in Philadelphia Municipal Court, and I absolutely loved being a judge. But unfortunately, for the last 7 years, what I've seen in a courtroom was quite disturbing and upsetting to me as a lifelong Philadelphian, as a person who was born in Fairmount, raised in Frankfurt under the Margaret Orthodox L-stop. It was upsetting to me what I was seeing in court every day. Victims who weren't being called, witnesses who weren't being called, cases that were being withdrawn at a high rate of 70%, unprepared assistant district attorneys, untrained assistant district attorneys, some of them who would literally go into the bathroom. One of them wrote this story about it, would go into the bathroom and stand on a toilet with the door shut to hide. I saw that day in and day out. The city of Philadelphia is not being served. Justice is not being served to the victims, to the witnesses. The law's not being upheld, and it goes right back to the district attorney's office. So I decided to get off the steps, get off my couch, step up, because nobody else was going to take on the current district attorney. And I decided, if no one else, then I will do it.
So it was your decision, no one came to you, you just were inspired?
I would say inspired. It's one of those things that I've done my entire life. And it started, my mother raised 5 of us, single mother for the most part. And her example throughout my life is what led me to some of the places that I've been in my life, including sitting on the steps at 2211 Parish Street as a 6 or 7-year-old kid in the 60s and watching a young black male ride his bike in front of our house as fast as he could, being chased by a group of teenagers from the neighborhood. And when they caught him, one of them picked up a board, one of those yellow boards from the police barricades, and started swinging it at this young kid. Sitting on the steps with my mother. My mother jumped off the steps, ran down, got in between those old, we called them old heads, got in between them, stopped them, pushed them away, protected that little kid, brought him over to our steps with the bike, and waited for the police to come so that young man could be escorted home. My mother jumped into it. She would jump into the arena, not worrying about her safety. That's who I am. That's why I was a paratrooper in the 1980s. 6 years stationed in places like South Korea on the DMZ, the 82nd Airborne Division. I was in a recon platoon. It's pretty high speed. Was stationed in Panama as an airborne infantryman. So 6 years, got out, used my veterans benefits, was able to finish college, go to law school. Fast forward to 9/11. I'm a 43-year-old man with a law degree. After 9/11, I went back into the military because I couldn't sit on the couch and watch our young men and women be put in harm's way when I felt that even at 43, I had a lot to offer because of my experience as an infantryman. So I went to Iraq at that age. So I've always been willing to jump into the fray when the cause I believe is a good cause. So my mother taught me that. She didn't have to tell me that. I saw it. That's how I live. So yes, at 64, I stepped down from the greatest job in the world, a Philadelphia Municipal Court judge. I absolutely love doing that. Gave up a pretty darn good salary, great benefits, great prestige, but the safety of the citizens of Philadelphia is much more important to me than me having a nice job.
Why were you drawn to the law?
You know, drawn to the law, so my life has never been a straight path. I was actually, when I got out of the military, I was bartending as I was finishing college. I was a semester short of being a teacher. And I was bartending out at Villanova, a place called Smoky Joe's, Villanova campus. And I worked every night, but on Monday nights I was in there with a bartending partner who was a law student. And he brought in the law student crowd. So, you know, you would banter back and forth. And it was basically a challenge. For years, people had said, you should be a lawyer. I was like, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing. But bartending those Monday nights with my friend Mike Burns and all these law students coming in, I was like, well, you know what are the steps to becoming a lawyer? He's like, well, the first thing you got to do is take the LSATs. So we went back and forth. He was kind of chiding me. He said, you're in the infantry. You're not going to do that well in the LSATs. So as a challenge, I took the LSATs, and my scores were high enough to get into law school when I did the research. So frankly, I applied to Rutgers, Camden, and Temple, and I got in. So it was always in the back of my mind, but it was just happenstance that at 30 years old, I'm having this conversation as a veteran with my buddy that the rest is frankly history. I went on and had a very successful career as a judge for 17 years.
What kind of law did you practice when you got into the private sector out of law school?
So my emphasis was on criminal defense and child advocacy. So I would, take on work as a criminal defense lawyer, but child advocacy was something that I really liked. It was actually some horrendous circumstances many times, because when you're appointed or you're the attorney for a child, it's usually because there's a lot of trauma going in that young person's life. So I got quite satisfied from what I was trying to do, trying to help these young men and women, trying to make sure that they're in the right spot with family and friends, getting the proper services. And I brought in that paratrooper spirit where I would do anything to help those children, go in and advocate for them. Not every child advocate goes into the home of the child, which is astounding that attorneys wouldn't do that, but not everyone has done that. And I would go into these homes and try to assess what's really going on with these kids and give my best advice and advocate for them in the court.
You mentioned how your paratrooper past played into your being a lawyer. How did that affect you as a judge?
So, as a paratrooper, yes, you jump out of airplanes. It takes a lot of training for you to be qualified as a jumper. The time that you have to put in. So, frankly, in the Army, you would start about 2 o'clock in the afternoon and do pre-jump. So you would do all these practice sessions and all. And the units that I was in, it would be that in the midday, you would do all this practice, and then you would jump at about midnight in the dark with 80 pounds of equipment, and then you would walk back, try to get your unit back together, little groups of paratroopers. So that training and the time and emphasis that you must put on a task in order to do it properly got me to the person that I am. I'm not afraid to jump into the fray, but I also know that it takes more than just saying, oh, I want to be a paratrooper. You got to put the hard work in it, and that's what I did. It also helped me become a leader. So in the infantry, we have squads, and in the military, being a squad leader, you probably have more direct supervision than a general does, because you're out there in the field with 8 other men and now women, and you're responsible for each and every one of them. You're responsible for them, what they're carrying, what we're going to do on a mission. So that leadership that you had to be out there doing it with your men, but also having to show how you can do it. So we're inspiring them to continue and keep going on with the mission. So certainly being a paratrooper prepared me to be a judge and to be a leader.
You mentioned that you were president judge, but talk about the courts that you were a part of in Philadelphia and what your responsibilities were.
So again, 17 years as a judge, and in 2018 we had an election. We have 27 municipal court judges, and those judges, we have an election, and those judges voted me overwhelmingly to be the president judge. So they had faith in my leadership skills. And right after that, I became the president judge. We had a computer incursion. We had the COVID hit. We had the civil unrest. So I like to say that I was a wartime president in the courts. And some of the things that I did was, during COVID, the world stopped as we remember. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when we were afraid of our shadows. I went into the prisons because men and women were stuck in jail. Again, the world stopped. Folks in jail were not being transported to have hearings. Witnesses weren't coming in. I went into the prison and we set up a courtroom. This man right here would go up there with a mask. The bars would be, shut behind us, and we would have hearings for those stuck up there, because I was concerned that these people were stuck in jail for how long, and I wanted them to have a fair hearing as soon as we could. We piped in via Zoom or whatever the technology was at the time, the witnesses, the victims, et cetera, so we could have these hearings. Veterans Court, I was blessed that in 2010 we started Veterans Court here in Philadelphia. It was based off the drug treatment court model, where we do a holistic type of approach. So I was one of the founders of that. And in that program, a veteran would get arrested. We bring them in now. Okay, you have a DUI or an assault, so that's an issue. But what else is going on in your life? Why were you drunk and driving? Why did you go ahead and fight that person? We peel the onion away, the layers away. So what's going on? Do you need help? Excuse me. Do you need help getting your medical benefits? Do you need help with mental health? Do you have issues with PTSD? Do you need job training? What is it that's going on in your world that we could help you? So we have a team that was working in Veterans Court with the VA, Department of Behavioral Health. We had mentors in our courtroom. We have equine therapy. We would go up to Bucks County to Shamrock Range, and therapy with horses. I mean, therapy with dogs is fantastic. You can double that with a horse. It's amazing. I went up there with judges and attorneys, because anybody involved in the criminal justice system could go up there. But when we would bring the veterans up there, it was amazing the feedback that we got from them. So all these folks involved in this Veterans Court, our recidivism rate was less than 10% in the criminal justice system. So that's what we had.
How does that compare to the rest of the judiciary?
Oh, it's 40, 50, 60% recidivism rate in the vast majority of the criminal justice system. We also had it, and this wasn't my program, but we had something called Dawn's Court, which is for sex workers, frankly, prostitutes. Now, in my mind, prostitutes are truly the victims. They are, generally speaking, addicted to drugs. They are abused. They are trafficked. So when they would get arrested and they would come into Dawn's Court, they had tremendous success with these ladies. And what was happening was, over a couple of year period, 420 of them came through the program, and a 77% success rate. These women would come back at the end and tell the court, tell the judge, Judge Neifeld, Judge Kirkland, tell them, thank you for turning my life around. There were 16 babies who were born drug-free. That's huge, because most ladies that are out there in that type of world, their babies are being born addicted. And that is a tremendous burden for that child to survive, but then it's an issue for the rest of their life. So when Judge Neifeld retired, we had a ceremony, and dozens of women came back and testified on the record, gave their names, talked about how much value it was and how it was life-changing for them to be part of that program. Thank you for reuniting me with my children, my family, my boyfriend, my husband. I now have a great job. My life is turned around. In fact, a couple of them have been hired by municipal court over the years. So these programs, we did them because they work. One of the reasons why I've stepped down from the bench was because those programs have been gutted. We no longer really have Dawn's Court because the current district attorney doesn't feel that the sex workers should be arrested. I understand that. The whole world, society needs to step up and take care of them. It's not happening. So now they're not being arrested, not being helped. They're just being left out there to wither on the vine. Now they're just part of the body bags that we're picking up every day in the city of Philadelphia because no one's helping them. It's the same thing going on with the veterans. We went from graduating 100 men and women through our program to we're down to 10 to 12 a year. That's because of the policy of not charging. And I wish the courts could stay out of most of this. Society needs to step up, and until they do, we were truly their only help. So I believe in diversion programs. It's restorative, rehabilitative type justice, second chances. I believe in all that. But I also believe in accountability. If you're going to be a person walking the streets of the city of Philadelphia with an AK-47 or frankly any other type of weapon, and you're going to go up to a citizen who's washing his car, and you're going to say, give me your money, and when he doesn't comply and you shoot him, you put that person in a wheelchair, I'm sorry, there needs to be some accountability. This happened a couple of years ago at 54th and Delancey. Mike Pionk, a guy washing his car, gets shot. The person who shoots him gets a deal from the current district attorney's office for 3.5 years. That's not accountability at all. Worse than that is that Mike was not informed of the deal. A victim in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has the right, the district attorney has the duty to contact them and say, we're considering doing this deal. Oh, by the way, the hearing's next week. Mike read about it in the paper and wasn't contacted about the deal. That's not doing your job as the district attorney. These are some of the reasons why I stepped down. We can walk, the district attorney's office can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can do second chances, diversion, but we can also hold people accountable. If you're going to go around and shoot our citizens, we have to make sure that we enforce the laws. We don't need new laws. We just need the laws that are on the books to go ahead and enforce them and prosecute these criminals.
Is that one of your main issues, is you feel like the laws are not being enforced? You talked about diversion programs and things like that, but when someone's not even charged or things are withdrawn, there's no opportunity for any of that to come into play. Is that what you're saying?
You said it very well. So in 2018, a month after Larry Krasner took office, he basically made retail theft a freebie, a free pass. He should have just came out and said, take whatever you want. It's free, it's on me. Because his policy, February of 2018, said all the retail thefts under $499 is now a ticket. Basically, he's saying a summary offense. The problem with that is somebody has to stop the person stealing, and then they have to be processed to get that ticket. Well, if you were one of the few people who got stopped, how many people are given the right names? So those summary tickets never really came to fruition. So we went from like 7,200 retail thefts reported. Now that's underreported because not every store sees the guy stealing. But 7,200, the arrest rate at that time was 23%, just before Larry got in office. The current numbers last year are over 22,000 retail thefts with an arrest rate of 2%. Stores are going out of business. The biggest one is Macy's leaving us. I don't want to hear Larry's response that it's the economy. No, it's not. It's about their security guard being killed and thousands of retail theft incidents in one store right here on the corner, across from City Hall, across from the DA's office. Wawa spent $100 million to put 9 Wawas in Center City. Guess what? I can't get a hoagie in Center City anymore from Wawa. They're gone. They're gone because of the hundreds and hundreds of incidents every month in each Wawa. So that policy is basically, to me, it's like a Krasner tax. It's a tariff from Larry Krasner because these stores are leaving us. And you know what? Rite Aid, CVS, same issues. Everything's locked up in Walgreens, Walmart, Target. What about the mom and pop stores? They can't afford somebody to come in and take $5 worth of merchandise, let alone a free pass for $499. Now, 55 days before this election, Larry Krasner put out a new policy that he's going to enforce retail theft. Over 7.5 years of not enforcing it, now there's an election coming. That's so bogus. Philadelphia's got to see through this. Yesterday, there was an announcement that we're now going to enforce the dumping laws. So you're not allowed to dump trash and construction material and tires anywhere you want. You got to take it to the dump. You can't put it next to Tookanee Creek or Pennypack Creek. For 7.5 years, those laws were unenforced. Now, 48 days prior to the election, Larry Krasner's put out a policy that we're going to now enforce them. Oh, but wait a minute. We're not going to enforce them to July because I don't have enough money to do this. I'm not sure what money you need to enforce dumping laws because the police investigate, they take photos of the guy dumping it through the cameras. You have the case. Now just charge them. What are you waiting for till July? I hope you start enforcing retail theft. I hope you start enforcing these anti-dumping laws. But I also hope you start enforcing the gun laws on the people who are running around shooting each other and innocent civilians. Start enforcing the law. If I'm elected, strike that. When I'm elected, I will enforce those laws.
District Attorney is the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for the City of Philadelphia. That's the job description. I'm sure that's probably how it is in the charter. What's not in that job description that you think is important to that job?
I think the parallel look at prosecution, the parallel look at justice. I really believe that part of it is giving people second chances. People deserve second chances. We don't need to put a 20-pound weight around everyone's neck that has a run-in with a crime. We need to see if we could fix them and help them. But we also have that parallel universe where those bad actors, those criminals who are going around and just terrorizing our city, they have to be held accountable. But on top of all this, the district attorney as the chief law enforcement officer needs to have integrity. And I'm really concerned about what's coming out of there right now. A judge recently ordered the entire district attorney's office, every single attorney, to take 12 continuing legal education courses, which every attorney has to take them.
There was no requirement.
No, it's always been a requirement you take these continuing legal education. But she emphasized take these 12 courses through the disciplinary board with an emphasis on candor to the court. Because in a recent case that she heard, it was front page Philadelphia Inquirer, March 15th, questioning the integrity coming out of the district attorney's office. She basically said in street words, you're a liar. They withheld 3 boxes of evidence in a very serious case. The main person who was the architect of the conviction integrity unit refused to come and testify, saying she would take the Fifth Amendment. The court found that one of the high-ranking assistant district attorneys basically lied to the court in the motion. The candor to the court was just all over the place. She called it the most egregious she had ever seen, and she just goes on and on in her opinion. But she's not the only one. Justice Brobson at the Pennsylvania Supreme Court recently said that the district attorney takes a knee on these cases. A federal judge, Mitch Goldberg, said similar words about the candor, about the lack of integrity coming out of Mr. Krasner and his office. That, you know, people should be in the streets calling for his resignation because of all these judges starting to question his integrity. Now, that's just troublesome to me. We're right now in the middle of an election. The Board of Ethics, which is supposed to be the people overseeing the elections in Philadelphia to make sure that we don't break the law, we don't break the rules. Well, last 2 elections, those Board of Ethics found that Larry Krasner and his campaign violated those laws. And how did he do it? He was using dark money, that soft money, the independent expenditure, Real Justice PAC out of San Francisco. He was paying his staff out of that PAC. You're not allowed to do it. And he's done it twice, in 17 and in 21. Both times, it's all online. You can find these things. So even worse than that is that Larry owns 40% of a building on Locust Street, 1221 Locust Street. Okay, he's behind on taxes. He's on a payment plan, $145,000, right? Been on a payment plan for years. But That building rented space during the campaign to Real Justice PAC out of San Francisco. That's a clear violation of these laws. I don't understand why more people aren't questioning how can we have the chief law enforcement officer in the city of Philadelphia have so many issues with his integrity when we expect every attorney, every witness to come in and tell the truth? Shouldn't that be the minimum standards for our district attorney? So it's so many people are coming out with these things, and it's quite concerning to me as a voter.
You talked a lot about the DA's office's relationship with the judiciary. What about the office's relationship with the police? What should that relationship be, and how would it change under you?
Well, almost every criminal case has a police officer involved in testimony, somebody who's going to come in and testify. So the district attorney's office must have a good working relationship with the men and women in the leadership in the police department, because again, they're their chief witnesses. Now, they have to vet these police officers when they're coming in, when their DAs are talking to them about their case. Is their testimony lining up with the evidence that they're presenting? They have to make a tough call sometimes and say, well, I'm not so sure about this testimony, so we're not going to put it on. But there has to be a working relationship with the police department. Now, what I like about Commissioner Bethel is that the training for the police officers, right? We expect them to be supermen and superwomen. I mean, think about it. A police officer has to show up to every conceivable type of call. Domestic violence, somebody in the throes of a mental health crisis, somebody in the throes of a bad reaction to drugs, violence, just a nuisance call, neighbors yelling at each other. So they have to be a social worker. They have to be somebody who's physically fit. They have to be somebody who can handle emotions and calm people down, respond to violence. It's a very difficult job. I love the fact that we have seemed to have turned a corner in these last couple of years, that we need to understand our police officers need help. They need help when they respond. Can we send a mental health social worker with them to assist? So they're starting to do that. But they're training the police officers to better handle each and every one of these circumstances, as opposed to before, come with a nightstick. So I appreciate that that's what's happening. I love the leadership of the police commissioner. I love what Mayor Parker's doing. She ran on, look, we can't have these bad actors and criminals terrorizing our neighborhood, so we have to enforce the law. But she wants community policing. She wants community buy-in. I want to be a partner with the police commissioner and the mayor of Philadelphia. Recently, in one of our conversations, we go to these community meetings. Larry's on here, and I'm sitting on the other side. We started talking about the Director of Public Safety. It's an office that Mayor Parker started. And Larry, I was I'm not shocked, but he said it publicly. I don't work for the mayor, and he's not working with the Director of the Public Safety Office. I don't understand that. The mayor has new strategies. Why don't we embrace them? Even if you don't agree, let's sit down and talk about it. How can all these entities get together and make our city better?
I'm sorry, we're almost out of time. So I want to give you the last 30 seconds to, you can look right into that camera and tell our viewers from Philadelphia why they should vote for you.
You should vote for me because we could do better. We could do a lot better. We've had 3,000 murders since Larry became the district attorney. We had over 10,000 citizens shot in the city of Philadelphia. Yet the gun convictions are going down. They're going through the basement. I am going to help people get second chances. I'm not talking about these gun charges. I'm talking about the other types of crimes. But people who are going to go around and terrorize our city, I am going to hold them accountable. I want you to be safer on your steps, in your driveway. I want your kids to be able to go to the playground, walk home from school. We could do better. Vote May 20th.
Pat Dugan, Democrat for District Attorney of Philadelphia, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate this.